Let me read verse 2 again. One basket had very good figs, even like the figs that are first ripe, and the other basket had very naughty or bad or evil figs, which could not be eaten, they were so bad. Then said the Lord unto me, What seest thou, Jeremiah? And I said, Figs, the good figs, very good, and the evil, very evil, that cannot be eaten, they are so evil. All right, now God is setting up a teaching here of what he means by your fruits ye shall know them. How we are to understand Matthew chapter 7, and you also find the same statement or a similar statement, I believe, in Matthew 12 verse 33 or someplace in there. But let's develop this now step by step. First of all, it's talking about that when Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and the princes of Judah with the carpenters, that word carpenter can also be translated craftsman. And a craftsman could be anybody who engraved on silver and gold, or it could be someone who was building the temple or building a magnificent building. Could be a stonemason. It could be any kind of a craftsman. And the smiths, and also those who were proficient in making weapons of war and weapons for agriculture. In other words, the skilled craftsmen of the country and the smiths. And you see, if we go back to 2 Kings chapter 24, we can get the historical setting of this. In 2 Kings chapter 24, we read in verse 11. 2 Kings chapter 24, verse 11. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants did besiege it. And Jehoiachin, who is also called Jeconiah, who's also called Coniah, let's remember that now, because otherwise we're going to get mixed up as we're talking about this. Jehoiachin is exactly the same king as Jeconiah. And incidentally, at this time he was a very young man, 18 years of age, and just a youngster, but he had been co-regent with his dad for 10 years, and then he was king alone for 3 months. And Jehoiachin, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. This, incidentally, was the year of probably 597. It was, in fact, we know it was the year 597. It was 10 years, 10 or 11 years before 587, when Judah was finally conquered by Nebuchadnezzar. In other words, it was before Jerusalem was completely destroyed. And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold, which Solomon king of Israel had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said. And he carried away all Jerusalem and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor. That is, God is defining all Jerusalem here, particularly the princes, and that would have included probably Daniel and Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego. This is probably the time when they were also carried out as very young men into the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar, and there they were groomed to be useful in assisting in the political activities. But at the same time, he took all the mighty men of valor, 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained save the poorest sort of the people of the land. And he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land, carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. All the men of might, 7,000, and craftsmen and smiths, 1,000. All that were strong and apt for war, even them the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon. Now we know from the context of this that they went out not in a rebellious way. They were obeying God's command to go out of Jerusalem. We're going to find that as we go on in Jeremiah 24. They were virtually volunteering to go because they saw that Nebuchadnezzar was going to destroy Jerusalem, and they were being obedient to that command. Now, when God is talking about craftsmen and smiths and mighty men of war and princes, He's talking about those who in the kingdom of Israel would have been temple builders, would have been the people who were especially useful in providing the items that were required for agricultural and for war and so on. And so Nebuchadnezzar now is taking them. It would be typifying those, just because remember Christ spoke in parables. Are we a craftsman? Are we a smith? Are we a mighty man of war? Are we princes, if we are true believers? Because this is typifying true believers, with the exception of Jehoiachin. We have to set him apart. We'll talk about him later on, but right now, except for Jehoiachin, everyone else is typifying those who are, and even in this context, Jehoiachin is typifying true believers, although God uses him in another context, in another way. But the fact is that here are all of these who are typifying true believers, who are really the workers. It's like those who, remember the two witnesses of Revelation 11, remember? And who were they? They were the two candlesticks. They were the two olive trees. And they are the ones who were killed. They were silenced. In other words, they were cast out of the church. And they represented the true believers within the congregations, who were really the ones that were most serious about wanting to share the gospel with others, and most serious about their study of the Bible and so on, because God had laid His hand upon them, and they were His children. They were true believers. And this is what this is typifying. This is those who are the most valuable to God as His servants in building the kingdom, but now they have all gone out to become citizens of the land of Babylon. All have gone out.